can sometimes feel like a lot, but you don't have to do it alone. I strongly believe that we're stronger together. Here, we're going to slow down, have real talks, make sense of things together, and explore ways to intentionally grow the life you want. We're going to talk about mental and physical health, relationships, money, work, and community. Welcome to Rooted in Intention with me, Karina Gomez. Hi, welcome back. If you are unsure about how to proceed because you're dating someone and you want a commitment with them, maybe you're in a situationship or maybe you're wanting to marry your current partner, but you haven't quite had that conversation with them or they just don't seem ready to go into a marriage, then this episode is for you. And hopefully, it helps create some relief and clarity about how to approach the situation that you're in. Because I know that these types of situations can feel a little bit sticky and just leaving you feeling confused and anxious, or maybe just straight up not valued. So, my intention is to help shed some light on some common limiting beliefs and fears that might keep you stuck in uncertainty and confused about what you can do. So, hopefully, you get a better sense of what's happening underneath the surface. Because if you've been listening to some of the other podcast episodes, you probably already know that many of the common issues that come up within relationships, especially if they are repeating issues in your life, are most likely going to be coming from our attachment style and from our subconscious beliefs that we aren't necessarily always fully aware of. So, if you haven't listened to those episodes about attachment styles or the subconscious mind, I would highly recommend that you go check those out as well. But with all of that aside, to get us started with this episode, I really want to start off with situationships because although this might not feel like it for you, these are probably the easier, simpler ones to navigate simply because you have likely spent less time with this person and it has already had less commitment from the start. So, the first thing I really want to say about situationships is to please stop calling it a situationship because you're not stuck in a situationship. You're actually opting into it. And the thing is that your subconscious mind might be in the driving seat, making you forget how much actual autonomy and choice you have in the situation, but that's where you're going to have to do some of that internal work and some healing to really help you understand why is it that you find yourself in this particular situationship or you find yourself in situationships as a pattern in your dating now. Because the way that people oftentimes talk about situationships, I don't think people realize how much power they're actually giving away. And I really want to let you know that if this is you, it's time to reclaim your power back. One of the first things that you can really start doing is to actually reflect. How did you get to where you are right now? And this is where you're going to have to be really, truly honest with yourself. What was happening at the beginning with the person that you are in a situationship with right now? Did you intentionally go into the dynamic wanting to keep it casual and then you caught feelings? Because if that's the case, the solution's actually pretty straightforward. You're going to have a direct and honest conversation with the person about how things have changed. And then you can both decide from there, depending on where the other person is, if they want to go into a committed relationship as well. If they want to go into a committed relationship with you, then great. That was pretty straightforward. Easy fix with a direct and honest conversation. Now, if they don't want to go into a committed relationship and they want to keep it casual, then at that point, you're likely going to want to do some reevaluating for yourself on whether you want to stay within the current dynamic or you want to end the current arrangement, maybe because you notice that you are actually ready for a committed relationship with someone. Now, I will say that things can feel particularly tricky for you if that first scenario wasn't you and you actually went into the dynamic secretly hoping that the other person would eventually see how amazing you are, and once they saw that they would eventually want to go into a committed relationship with you. Again, I want you to be really, really honest with yourself about what was your intention going into the dynamic with the other person. Did you go into the dynamic attempting, not actually being, but attempting to be chill and nonchalant, but in reality, you were actually desiring a relationship? Because if one of these was you, there's a little bit to unpack here. You might have some limiting beliefs and fears driving the dynamic on autopilot, again, through the power of the subconscious mind. So, to help you uncover these, I really want you to ask yourself, why were you hoping that the other person would eventually see you? What would it mean to you? Would it mean that it's proof that you're finally worthy of being picked? Are you being driven by the belief that love is meant to be earned? And so it actually feels normal to you having to prove yourself in order to receive love, in order for someone to choose you. Did you think that the only way to be chosen was to put on a mask and hide your true desires for a relationship because you were actually afraid of being too much, of asking too much, of having too many needs? Your responses to those questions are really going to start helping you understand what your stories are, what limiting beliefs you have that are currently preventing you from actually dating in a manner that honors your truest needs and desires. And the thing is, once you start seeing your stories, then and only then can you begin rewriting them. And that's what that internal work is about. And that's why it's so important for you to actually be honest with yourself. And if you have to rewind the podcast and maybe pause, listen to it at a slower pace, jot down some of these questions, and really take some time to reflect and answer them truthfully, not for anyone else, but only for yourself. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for situationships. And now I'm going to move on to the second general scenarios where you have maybe been dating someone for a while and you want to go into a committed relationship with them, or you want to take the relationship to the next level and get married. And if that statement really resonated with you and you know that that is what you truly want, I just want to say that congratulations. You have already done the first step in getting honest with yourself and acknowledging and honoring what you want, because I think that's an important step that a lot of people miss. And the fact that you can actually own that, I think that's a good start. So now that you've done that, the next step is to actually communicate what it is that you want with the other person. And I just really want to highlight that there's nothing wrong with you or desperate of you for bringing up the conversation first. It's actually a good indication that you're approaching dating and the relationship in a very intentional manner, contrary to what society sometimes says. Okay, but before you do have that conversation with someone, I do want to bring up some things to be mindful of before you have that conversation with the other person. One is around timelines. Because if you tend to run anxious, maybe you have an anxious, preoccupied attachment style, Your anxiety might be playing a few tricks on you, particularly when it comes to how fast you want commitment and for things to progress. Because typically, if you are operating out of a state of anxiety, you might actually want commitment to help soothe the anxiety and feel some sense of relief more than anything, not necessarily because you are actually wanting to go into a relationship with the other person. So it's really, really important if you're feeling particularly rushed in wanting to go from the dating phase into a committed relationship. So there's a little bit of that balancing act of one, knowing and honoring what it is that you want, and also pausing and noticing if you're pushing for something out of a place of anxiety, because that anxiety or maybe fear is going to be your sign that there's some internal work and some healing to do so that you can actually move forward with commitment out of a place of genuine desire rather than out of fear or anxiety. Because the reality is that someone might genuinely need and want more time to get to know you. And it's important to give people that space and time. I want you to just pause and think about, what are you making it mean if you do or you don't go into a committed relationship with this person? Is your brain making up stories that if you don't go into a committed relationship with this person, you're going to end up alone? Is your brain making up a story that once this person chooses you, then that will be evidence that you are worthy and that you are worthy of love? And if that's the case, again, that's the opportunity to really start to unpack and to unravel these stories so that you can start rewriting new belief systems into your brain rather than letting these painful stories and limiting beliefs run on autopilot. Another item I want to touch on is this sense of comparison that I think is natural because as humans, we look at what other people are doing around us. But I want to challenge you because I imagine that you're listening to this episode because you want to be a lot more intentional and thoughtful about things, to really think about why it is that you want to get into a committed relationship with a person or why you want marriage. Now, this isn't to say that you don't have that want and desire for yourself. But I do know that sometimes that actually isn't the case. And sometimes what we've done is we have absorbed these messages of how things should look like, of what relationships should look like, what the quote unquote natural progression of things are. And I think that's all made up. And it's okay to start questioning that just as much as it's okay if you want those things. So if you have an inkling that what's driving your want for marriage is because of what society says that's what should be next, that's where you have the opportunity to dig into those beliefs and really actually define for yourself what type of relationship or relationships you truly want. Not what do you think you should want or what should it look like, but what do you want it to look like? So, with that said about timelines and comparison, now I want to go back to talking about communication because communication is a skill set. And I do want to share a basic formula that I share with people that I've worked with about how to start a conversation if you're needing a little bit support about how to actually have that conversation with someone about going into a committed relationship or about actually taking your relationship to that next level and going into marriage. So, put very simply, I want you to focus on three things. Start off with sharing how you're feeling, then follow that up by sharing what you're needing or wanting or seeing. And then lastly, follow that up with an open-ended question to actually create the space for a conversation because you want to actually have a dialogue about this because it's going to take two people to have a relationship, right? So the way that this can look like if say you are dating someone and you want to go into a committed relationship with someone, you can share something like, "Hey, I've really been enjoying our dates and getting to know you. I can see this moving into a relationship. How do you feel about things?" And if you are already in a committed relationship with someone and what you're actually wanting to do is talk about marriage, then that might actually look like something like, "Hey, honey," or so and so, or whatever you call your partner, I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I've really been thinking that going into a marriage with you feels right. What do you think? How are you feeling about things? Now, of course, these are generic scripts. So, of course, make them your own, make them sound natural as if they're coming for you. And more than anything, focus on coming into the conversation from how things are showing up for you, what direction you're wanting to go, and opening it up again to discussion. Then from there, the rest really, again, should be a dialogue between you and the other person. And what I really want you to do is really pay attention to what the other person is saying, because that's going to be data for you that's going to help you navigate what to do next. So if they are saying that they don't want marriage, but you do actually want marriage, it's going to be really important for you to actually take that in. Take that in and check in with yourself about whether this is a deal breaker for you. How important is marriage for you? If the other person seems iffy about commitment or about marriage, it's going to be important to actually continue the conversation with them about what's coming up for the other person. Do they want to hit some personal milestones before they feel like they could go into marriage and maybe start a family? Are they actually having hesitations about the relationship? Those are going to be two different situations. And again, that's going to be data for you about what's going on within the relationship. Because at the end of the day, you only know how you feel about and within the relationship. And I do also want to share that if the other person says that they're iffy about commitment or about marriage, that's not your sign to take their uncertainty as a challenge to prove yourself. You deserve a relationship with someone that values you and wants to be going in the same direction that you want to be going as well. And again, that's where doing the internal work about why you're trying so hard to make it work with someone that isn't able to be reciprocal or wanting the same type of relationship with you. What stories is your brain believing? Is it that you won't find anyone else better than them? Is it that you've already spent so much time with them and you're actually afraid of what starting over could look like? Is it that you're afraid of being alone? I know that these are some deep questions to think about that you might not know right off the bat. So go ahead again and rewind the podcast, jot these down, and actually take some time to reflect and think about what are the things that are coming up for you. What are your stories around the particular situation that you're in? What are the things that you're truly wanting and desiring? What are the things that are holding you back? What are the things that are holding you back from having those direct and honest conversations with people? And if someone isn't wanting or willing to go down the same path that you want, why are you finding it so hard to let them go? And gaining that clarity about your wants and your desires and your stories, your limiting beliefs, your patterns, then and only then can you take the next steps to move forward in a fashion that's intentional and in alignment with you. So, hopefully, this has been helpful. And I know it's easy to get caught up in our own head. So, if you are wanting some support and guidance with this, you can set up a call using the link in the show notes so we can talk about your situation, what's coming up for you, and how we might be able to work together. And if you enjoyed the episode, I would greatly appreciate if you left a review and you let me know your thoughts. And if you know someone that needs to hear this episode as well, go ahead and share it with them because sharing is caring. And that's it. Okay, bye. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Rooted in Intention. Until next time, and remember to keep showing up for the life, relationships, and community you want. Now go, grow the life you want